think this is my good side. Should I just always keep my head a little bit turned? I made a video a couple of months ago about Ana Kasparian from the Young Turks, and it caused a little bit of a stir. Ana has made, I would call, a right-wing turn on a handful of issues lately, and I argued that what she's doing is performative. That there's a list of talking points people go down when they do the so-called why I left the left grift. You can't just come out one day and say, I'm a conservative now because I want some of that conservative media money. You start by just asking questions and smearing the left as intolerant of disagreement when we disagree. Then you change a couple of positions, and then you say we're gatekeeping the left, and other talking points that are always identical to others used by folks who left the left. Eventually, like Jimmy Dore, Tim Pool, and Dave Rubin, you become officially, or at least effectively, part of right-wing media, because you now agree with them on basically everything. I noticed this behavior from Ana, so I made a video discussing it. I received many comments suggesting I'm some unthinking ideologue who needs to learn that not everything is black and white. For instance, Ana calls us religious zealots about our political beliefs. And I took that to mean that we are too intense about our political beliefs. We believe them too deeply. We're not open to changing our mind. So I got this comment in response to that. If you can't tell the difference between religious zealotry and whether one should believe what they believe, then you live in a completely alternate reality. Religious zealotry has nothing to do with the quality of evidence one has for their position. It has more to do with the intolerance of those who have different views. Putting aside that I don't think I should have to tolerate different views that are not based on quality evidence, I'll give these folks the benefit of the doubt because a lot of the Ana stuff has been mostly discussed among the wider left, and it might not be clear to non-political junkies what has actually happened. So here I will attempt to explain the origins of Ana's heel turn and why I find it disingenuous. A while back, 2 years, 3, something like that, people were tossing around non-gendered ways to refer to all people who can give birth, including women or cisgender women, trans men, intersex people born with female reproductive organs, and people who identify as non-binary who were born with female bodies. This was mostly for broad medical and political settings. And I'll add that another reason we don't just say women when we're talking about this is not all women can give birth. But again, there are trans men, intersex people, etc. who can. One of the terms people had come up with and started using was birthing people, a shortening of the more clunky people who can give birth. It's still an awkward term, and maybe we can do better. But people were trying it out, again in broad settings, for the sake of inclusion. This was never an attempt to erase the word woman or women, and it was never used to refer to specific individuals. For example, if I were to describe Ana, I might say she's a journalist and the woman who hosts the TYT main show with her co-host, Cenk Uygur. I wouldn't say she's a birthing person because we're not talking about birth or pregnancy or abortion. And I already know she identifies as a woman. And even if I didn't, I would likely assume she's a woman unless she or someone else corrected me and said she's non-binary or something. All of this to say, no one was calling Ana or anyone else individually a birthing person. And you can find some great videos from a few years ago where someone explained everything I just said. Her name was Ana Kasparian.
They know that it is very possible for someone to be born a biological male or biological female, but in terms of gender, identify differently as a male or non-binary, but they still have the biological capacity, the physical capacity to get pregnant. So that's why the language, the rhetoric is inclusive to include those people. It is not a big deal. But they make it a big deal. They manufacture it into a big deal because that's all Republicans are. That's all they have. This is all they do. Endless bad faith arguments.
And before you say, oh, what, people can't change their mind, Joe? Come on. She didn't say she changed her mind. She just acted like this had all just occurred to her. So if you change your mind, you can say, you know what, I was wrong. But she didn't. One day, unprovoked as far as we know, Ana got on Twitter and said, I'm a woman. Please don't ever refer to me as a person with a uterus, birthing person, or person who menstruates. How do people not realize how degrading this is? You can support the transgender community without doing this shit. So leftists, many of them Ana's own friends and fans, answered, saying things like, is someone calling you a birthing person though? I think that's mostly used in medical settings, or we're not trying to erase women, etc. In other words, her friends and fans reached out, gently at first, wondering why she had suddenly changed her tune. It's Twitter, so I'm sure some people were shitty. Maybe a lot of people were shitty. But that's not a good reason to change your values or smear people who care about you and aren't being shitty. And not to mention, if this is something you're concerned about, this was at a time when trans people were particularly under attack publicly by the right, with many transgender sports bans and other bills being passed at the state level. So make no mistake, Ana lashed out at other leftists for using gender-neutral terms. And when they responded, she said, I'm being attacked, I'm being brigaded, this is what the left does, they're so intolerant of anyone who disagrees with them. She was being intolerant. She decided one day that gender-neutral language was wrong and worthy of public scorn. Yet it's her friends who responded to the attacks who are the a-holes. If we correct the incorrect things she's saying with information we know she knows, we're the a-holes? Then when she continues going after trans people and homeless people and migrants, and we say that supporting those folks is part of being on the left, that's religious zealotry? What would you have us do? All right, so for this part of the video, I wanted to go over some of the comments that Ana made at the time after this tweet in conjunction with the commentary by the Leftist Mafia. There's a podcast of several leftist creators. There is one person up here who's not showing their face, and they were later shown to be shady in some fashion. I didn't follow the story that well, but never mind. You don't have to pay too close attention to that. So this video is Ana Kasparian clashes with trans community over inclusive language. All right. I'm starting this at 30 minutes and 5 seconds because Ana speaks here.
So let me just address something, okay? For me, as a woman who has experienced endless debates, like our bodies are so politicized. And I hate feeling from the right wing my entire life that our bodies are just meant for producing children. So,
and that's fair. I could even see like having some like poor reaction to something because she's experienced this. But if you're a smart person, if you're a good leftist commentator, you're going to be able to analyze the situation materially and understand what's really going on. But let's just see what she says after this.
The phrase person with a uterus for me is triggering. But I understand the importance of inclusive language. I just don't like to be boiled down to a body part.
See, okay, so see, this is why it's like a little bit like it's ping-ponging, right? I don't like those phrases because as a woman, our bodies are always politicized, and the right wing does this, and we're treated like we're only there to produce children. So referring to me as someone with a uterus just like boils it down to just that. Fine. But then she ping-ponged, and it's like, oh, but I do understand the need for inclusive language. Oh, okay. But don't do it this way. Like, okay, well, which is it? Did you feel the need to announce this to the world? That the left wing was doing this to you and that needs to be rejected wholeheartedly? Or did you just feel like, for me, it's weird, but I get it? Because that doesn't warrant a tweet that you know is going to cause a stir.
From the Humanist Report reminded me of a video we did a few years ago where we were defending someone who used the phrase people with the capacity for pregnancy in the context of the abortion debate, I believe it was. I'm totally fine with that.
Okay, so right there, she acknowledges that she has said different things about it in the past. And the guy she's talking about is Mike Figueredo. I hope I'm not saying it wrong. He's right up here. He's part of this show. Yeah, I mean, she's acknowledging that she's said different stuff about it in the past. But person with the capacity for pregnancy, I don't understand why that's better than person with a uterus or person who can get pregnant. It is person who can get pregnant. It is it is like birthing person, which you would only say in a certain context when it's relevant.
I think that's totally fine. If that's what they want to use in a medical setting, great. But for me, my personal preference is I don't like to be referred to, even in the context of an abortion debate, as a person with a uterus. Person with the capacity for pregnancy, that's great. That's all I'm saying.
I got something to say right now.
My track record on transgender issues is pretty clear, and I hope you understand that I have no...
I'm with Lance here. He's just bursting at the seams to say something.
Disdain or hatred for the transgender community whatsoever.
Wait, sorry. Let me say this. The two biggest conservative figures who went after her afterwards, both of them were demanding that she stop calling herself cis. That was Glinner and Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh and Glinner, both of them were like, hey, by the way, you came so close, but you could never call yourself cis. Blah, blah, blah. I was like, so you're telling a woman who's telling you that, like, I don't want to be told what I have to be referred to, that I have to not use these terms. So that's the right wing response to this. I hope everyone realizes.
Yeah, I'll say what I think the issue is. She has to understand she has a platform. It doesn't matter what her personal feeling is. She doesn't need to voice that publicly. Like
she didn't.
That's just stay private. Like talk about. You have to understand the power you have with your words and language, and it doesn't. I'm sorry, it doesn't matter how you feel personally.
What context? I'm sorry. What
terminology.
context is she being called? Like just walking around.
There you go.
A person with a uterus.
So not to be the guy who always brings it back to Palestine, but I just noticed this same kind of duplicity among Zionists, and I kind of don't even like the comparison here because Anna is very much not a Zionist. She and Cenk are actually really good on the Palestine issue as far as I have seen. So forgive me, but it's similar to what Zionists do. Like in the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, which I made a video about, they used the global guidelines on anti-Semitism. It says that while you can criticize, aspects of Zionism or of Israel as a country, if you use Zionism as a slur, if you use it in place of Judaism, that's bad. That's anti-Semitism. And the thing is, like, I agree. If I were to say, like, well, I see Israel do this and they represent Jews, so that means all Jews are bad because I think the thing they're doing is bad. I mean, yeah, that's anti-Semitic. But the problem is that's not what they're responding to. They are responding to people protesting what Israel is doing and describing Zionism, but using language that Zionists don't like. Right. And it's similar to how on Twitch, they made new rules about how, you can say the word Zionism, you can talk about Zionism, but you can't use it as a slur against Jewish people. And it's, again, fine. I don't believe in using slurs against Jewish people. I think that's bad. But the problem is no one, as far as I know, and, there are anti-Semites in this fucking space. Like I've seen them on Twitter and shit, but it's mostly on Twitter. But the problem is that this was a response to Hasanabi's commentary. This was a response to Frogan's commentary and Mike from PA's commentary on Israel and Zionism. And they don't use it as a slur. The problem they're responding to doesn't exist. So it's ultimately a way to weaponize marginalized people, in this case, Jewish people, in Anna's case, women, against people who have a fair critique, people who are fairly protesting.
That's what I'm trying to understand. There's this this kind of like, I'm not being included or I'm being erased. Again, there is something by nature of her distinguishing that, where she's like, I'm so tired of being called a person with a uterus. And it's like, but if we were talking about it again in this, like, if we're talking about it in the abortion debate, because she brings up that in particular, then you, a woman, aren't the only person that is included in the people who are considered for the abortion debate. So why does it bother you to be called, for everyone who has the capacity to get pregnant, to be called people that have the capacity to get pregnant? It's a non-apology. She didn't acknowledge that you, for some reason, came out of nowhere talking about how you don't want to be referred to as someone with a uterus, but who is walking around calling you?
Right. So bothers you can want to be called by whatever you want to call in your life. No one is stopping you from calling you a woman. People refer to you as a woman. You are a woman. Nothing is infringing upon you. But the fact that you unprovoked were so bothered by the idea of other people using this inclusive language that you even feel like you could make some PSA as though like people should not be using this because you don't like it, because it's not your preferred measure, is a level of privilege that is not being called out in this conversation. That's some real white woman shit. And I like Anna, but that is what that is.
Yeah. And again, I'll tie it in again, but like this is the nature of settler colonial societies, which Israel is, which the US is. So sorry, this is the way it goes. The feelings of the in-group are much more important than the safety of any of the out-group or marginalized groups. Palestinians are getting slaughtered, but Jewish people in Israel or on, Columbia University campus say they're uncomfortable, and that's an unforgivable sin. Never mind that there's, hundreds, probably thousands of Jewish people in the pro-Palestine movement. In this case, trans women, non-binary people, trans men, intersex people, these are the people getting hurt. But Anna, a cisgender woman, has some feelings one day, and that has to be taken so much more seriously.
I feel like when white people start talking about they feel like they're being erased when we make the Little Mermaid black and stuff like that and blah blah blah. Racist. We all fucking know it's racist. We all in consensus. Everybody knows it's fucking racist. The same way when you start using this bullshit logic when it comes to my womanhood, bro, get the fuck out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here.
And I covered an article that mentioned Wolfpack, and the article misrepresented the organization Wolfpack, which Cenk founded.
Wolfpack was a super PAC that Cenk Uygur founded. That was to fund progressive leftist campaigns, basically.
Privately reached out to me, and he's like, "Hey, people at Wolfpack think that you misrepresented them and whatnot." And at first I got defensive. It's like, oh, come on, give me a break. Is this really that significant? But they thought it was. So I tried to do my best to correct it. I brought on one of the executives at Wolfpack to kind of explain what the disconnect was. So if he can understand why reaching out in good faith is important for growth, then he should apply that to this situation as well, because I listened to you, motherfucker, so listen to me now. That was a bad tweet. No, stop hardening your stance.
he doubled down more than Anna did, and it's guys, apologies work. Apologize. Nothing's wrong with
yes.
People will forgive you if you understand the impact of your words, what you did wrong, and you apologize.
Again, it's just everyone's just dying to forgive her. We're just like, all right, Anna, you maybe had a bad day or weird day. I don't know.
It doesn't make you weak.
No, I completely agree. I completely agree.
He made tweets about thinking like staying in their position is making them strong. No, that's making you look like you're weak and unable to acknowledge that you said something ridiculous.